Hi everyone, my name is Steve Jones from news magazine Renfrew, and today I'd like to speak to you about the phenomenon known as graffiti. But in this case, sort of like a sub-aspect of graffiti, and that is the behavior of tagging. And we've witnessed some examples of tagging taking place in the community in the last couple of weeks. Some of it has taken place in chalk on some abandoned buildings, or not abandoned buildings, but empty buildings. And then some of it has been done in spray paint on the exteriors of some existing businesses. One in particular, which is a brand new business, which really bothered me when I saw it. So I felt that I needed to say something and speak to this issue. So I don't want to trash artists or anything like that. My goodness, I wish I had the ability to be more artistic than I am, which is absolutely zero artistic. So you know, I don't want to run down the whole community of artists, but like in any other aspect of human endeavor, there's always a minority of people who seem to throw shade on the entire population by their inability to, I don't know, play by the rules, for lack of a better term, just sitting here. But yeah, so I wanted to look into it, and I wanted to sort of look into some of the motivation that I think might be behind it. Now, I don't style myself as some sort of expert. If you're somebody, if you're an artist, and I'm speaking specifically about a small group of artists in the local community here, and if you're suffering from self-esteem issues or issues of self-worth, as we all do, as many of us do, then, you know, in some cases there's nothing that can top a can of spray paint when it comes to you know, the fragile self-esteem and sense of self-worth that a woebegone artist might have, somebody who feels that society has and is continuing to ignore them. So I guess the thinking is, like, do you want to be seen? Do you want to be experienced by the general population? Do you want folks to know that you're out there, even though your identity is likely hidden from the general population, although other artists may be familiar with your work? Do you want people to know just how important you really are in your own way? Do you want people to fully understand that that you're somebody with significant artistic talent? So if that appeals to you, if you want people to be aware of that aspect of you, or those aspects of you rather, then, you know, in the dead of the night, while everyone else is asleep, or while most people are asleep, while society sleeps in the dead of the night, take your little can of spray paint and go vandalize the front of an innocent business. In fact, a business that hasn't even had its opening yet. It's not even in business. It's still in the process of getting itself ready for the big day. So what you do is you tag them before their grand opening even. And people are sure to take note of that. You know, never mind the fact that the owner probably dropped about $250,000 to make the place, to get the place ready for their opening day. You know, startup fees to get the place up and running, that sort of thing. And never mind the fact that the owner has taken a ragged little storefront in downtown Renfrew. And if you've ever been in downtown Renfrew, I think you kind of know what I'm talking about. And I mean no disrespect, it is what it is. So I mean, if it's harsh to the ears of local people, I'm a local person. And let's face it, there's a lot of stuff downtown that's pretty old and dated and hasn't been looked after. So not the case with this restaurant, though. This owner has put the money into this place, and they've turned, like I said, a ragged little storefront into probably one of the more eye-appealing presentations on the entire main drag. So, you know, this is a street for anyone who's familiar with Renfrew, and this is the same in small-town Ontario, small-town everywhere, really. Well, small-town Canada. This is a street that's overrepresented by cannabis shops, tattoo parlors. I have nothing against these businesses, by the way. Dollar stores, variety stores, that sort of thing. And mind you, those businesses have a clientele. They service a group of people. And so they're important to have those places existing in town. when you have them all bunched together on basically the main drag of your community, it's not the most pride-invoking and, as I said, eye-appealing presentation that you can give to not only your local population but to anyone driving through town. And we all know how much work the tourism department takes here in, how much work they do in Renfrew to draw tourists in and to pump those tourist dollars into the local economy. So here we have an owner that's actually beautified a place, made it look really good. It's a corner lot, so there's two faces to it. So I mean, it looks good along Raglan Street, and it also looks good along Prince Street or Prince Avenue, whatever it might be. So I mean, there's two faces to this thing, two really good presentations, and somebody comes along and tags it. Tags it in spray paint, by the way, not chalk, which can be washed off with a lot of scrubbing and that sort of thing, but spray paint, which is a totally different thing when it comes to making repairs, and of course, much more effort and much more expense. So you've got this person who invested all this money. They've taken pride in their place of business. They've made it look really, really good, and it's a novel place. It's an indigenous restaurant. We've never had anything like that in town before. So I mean, it's something that people like me get excited about. But obviously, this person, it's their dream. It's their vision, and they've worked really hard to bring this vision into reality. It's a labor of love, if I could say. And then, despite all of that, some little wagon of self-esteem comes rolling up and tags it in the middle of the night. And, art is art, and I can appreciate it as much as the next fellow. But vandalism is a different story, and, insurance doesn't cover everything. And even if it did, it jacks up your premiums and stuff like that. So it's just totally unfair to have this happen to somebody who's working so hard to establish their dream and to share it with the rest of us. So I know you know this. Tagging's been around for a long time. It's a form of graffiti, I guess you could say, and it's been around for as long as grudge-bearing artists have been around. And as history wafts over the passage of time, there's been people around who just don't seem to have the capacity to play nice with the rest of us. And so, that's been around ever since people have been around. So, yes, I'm not trashing the internet. I use it all the time. But I don't canvass the internet looking for different ways to throw a rock through somebody's window. And so that is primarily the big difference. Another thing too, there seems to be some sort of consistency of font styles and things like that. It almost makes you wonder if there's some sort of online course or some college course called Graffiti 101 or Tagging 101, or even extend that to Vandalism 101. It's just amazing how the artwork and the font styles have remained consistent all the way through the decades. Again, the people who are doing this, there's no doubt about it. They are artistic. They are good at what they do. In fact, some of them kind of give off the vibe that they're Spider-Man. There's one piece of graffiti which had to be accessed by climbing onto the roof of the adjoining business so that they could do the artwork on the side of the wall. Very impressive stuff. So whoever they are. They're not only a gifted artist, but they're a gifted second story person as well. After walking around and viewing and recording some of the various acts of graffiti around town, it seems to me, and like I said, I'm by no means an expert, that it's not the work of a single person or the work of a single group. As I indicated, the styles have some degree of similarity to them, but they are basically different. One of the big differences is, of course, the messaging and the medium that they're using. So some of these people have been using chalk on empty buildings, on the sides of empty buildings. Giant Tiger comes to mind. and the messaging is sort of uplifting and happy. But nevertheless, other people use spray paint. That's a totally different ball of wax there. The damage is more significant. The messages aren't happy. As I'll show you as we go through this, some of them indicate a sad face, and the word alone is very much projected onto the sides of these buildings and surfaces. And you know, I know that there's a lot of people, I don't pretend to understand what the message is there, but if it is that feeling of being alone somewhat in society, that you're an island in this big rush of society as it swirls around you, and you feel alone in that, I can kind of relate to that. I get you, but like I said, it doesn't give you the right to throw a rock through somebody's window, and it certainly doesn't give you the right to mess up, you know, somebody else's property that they've worked very hard to acquire. So, you know, it kind of, in a way, it sort of reminds me of dogs pissing on poles, you know, marking their territory, except the fact that dogs are cute. And dogs are innocent. They don't go about their business with any intent to injure. They're just being dogs, you know. I can't pretend to speak to the motivation of this, but I will anyways. But again, I'm not an expert. But people do things because they're motivated to do it. It's not like you just wake up and, oh, I think I'm going to go get some spray paint and, you know, hack away at some guy's fence. Who cares about the property owner that spent all the money, you know, making this thing, whatever it might be, a fence, a home, a family home, a place of business. You know, who cares about them? I mean, obviously, you know, you might take the point of view that, you know, these people have money to have a business. To hell with them. They have money to fix the business. You know, I'm struggling. Perhaps I don't have the same amount of money. Perhaps I don't have the same, or feel I don't have the same opportunities in society as this owner of a business, or this owner of a very nice house, or this owner of a very nice house with a very nice fence. They can make that. They can make those repairs, no problem. They got all sorts of money. They have nice cars and all that kind of stuff. You know, never mind the idea that people have scrimped and saved and borrowed and all sorts of stuff like that. And, you know, those things that I mentioned that they have, you know, they came as a result of hard work. And also, in many cases, they came as a result of borrowing money. And so when somebody comes along and trashes it, that hurts, you know. You might be right up to your limit as to what your capacity to either borrow money or how much you can how much debt you can comfortably assume. And, you know, maybe it's not a good idea to put yourself up to that limit, but nevertheless, you're allowed to, and you should be allowed some comfort to protect yourself, or to have a basic, decent protection from people who are going to come and spray paint the side of something that's near and dear to your heart. Now, how about this for a concept? What about establishing yourself among the giants of the graffiti pantheon of the world? Having other like-minded people such as yourself recognize your work must be something that's deeply satisfying. And it's just like having a badass reputation within the graffiti community. Just like everywhere else, it seems that there's some form of social stratification that takes place within street culture and street subcultures out there. And it's funny that social standing, maybe, you know, perhaps one of the reasons for an artist or anyone really to be bitter with society in the first place, actually has its own place in the graffiti world as well. Maybe it's all about giving a sense of aesthetics and beautification. Maybe it's an attempt to bring artistic life to an otherwise dull and neglected public space. Abandoned buildings, those that are sitting vacant, those can be a real eyesore, and Renfrew is certainly no stranger to that circumstance. Maybe the artist is driven by the desire to enhance or transform unsightly urban environments such as those, and beautify the environment through their artistic intervention. And that's well and good. And I'm not saying that all the graffiti that I witnessed was patently wrong or bad. As I may have mentioned before earlier, a lot of it has some uplifting messaging, very light-hearted, not negative at all. And in addition, those particular examples of graffiti were done in chalk. So I mean, if somebody did want to take possession of that building, or some business moved in there, they would be able to easily clean that up. As wonderful as the message is, they could restore the brickwork to its original form. But that said, as I mentioned before, the restaurant that got tagged has a new, fresh, and dynamic look. And honestly, it didn't need any outside intervention. I was able to speak to the CEO, the owner and operator of the Manitou Bistro here in town. That's the restaurant that got tagged. And Suzette Foucault is the point person for this endeavor. And I had the opportunity to sit down a bit with Suzanne and talk to her about how this artwork, if you want to generously call it that, this tagging incident that took place at her place of business, how that impacted her and her efforts to get her store up and running.
So, coming out of my vehicle, hands full of supplies, walking over to my buildings, I'm so proud that all my signs are up and the painting was done. I walk by and I see this spray paint, and it just pretty well almost made me drop everything that was in my hands, and devastated my heart, because it was not the first time, it was the second time. I did all of the repairs to damage it the first time, and then to see it happen again really kind of shook me. I was grateful that he didn't hit my sign, because those signs are very, very expensive, but still makes me feel like I'm going to have, almost like as if I'm not being accepted into the community. I know it sounds crazy to say that, almost like as this go away, and I know that's not what the concept is, but it was hurtful. I think that's what I want to say, is that it was hurtful to see that.
So as for the rest of us, what to do, right? And the simple answer is probably, and unfortunately, nothing. It's obviously, it's something that's obviously beyond the ability or the interest of law enforcement, although that probably is unfair to say, because I don't know for a fact whether they've looked into it. I'm sure that they received a report on it and they probably looked into it, but who knows, maybe there's some sort of investigation ongoing, so perhaps I shouldn't judge, but and it's not like they're going to be really public about what they're doing or who they might be looking into, so but it's a fair point to make, that perhaps, on the list of priorities that law enforcement has, that maybe this is somewhere down below the medium of priorities, so or the median rather. So I'll cut them some slack that way. What about the town of Renfrew? Does the town not have any kind of stake in this? Do our elected representatives demand any kind of action of any sort on this sort of thing? Is it just a case of people being people? What about the business community? What about the rest of them? We have a downtown improvement administration or downtown improvement agency, but anyways, we've got some organization that is funded and supported through the auspices of the town of Renfrew, and their mandate is to enhance business prospects within the town of Renfrew. Do they have a voice on this? Do they have anything to say, or are they just glad that their businesses didn't get tagged? But it does appear, unfortunately, it does appear that it's pretty much everyone for themselves. More than likely, it's going to be the way that it's always been, where the victims are going to be left responsible for the cost of repairs, and it just seems that is so obviously unfair. But what do you do about that? I was talking to Suzanne earlier, and we met her rather a little earlier in the article, and her restaurant is due to be open this coming Wednesday well, it's open already since last Thursday, but her grand opening is taking place on Wednesday of this week. I believe that coincides with National Aboriginal Day. I'm not sure if I have the title for that correct. But that is entirely apropos. It is an Indigenous themed restaurant, and it's something that Suzanne is very proud of, rightly so. And, there's probably going to be quite a bit of an attraction downtown on Wednesday morning, because she plans to have Indigenous drummers present, and, it's going to be hopefully a very successful kickoff. But when I asked her about, what does she plan about doing this other than, constantly repairing the work or the vandalism that's been perpetrated on her business, and she says that, she's going to install security cameras.
I have a worry that this will be a continuous problem, and I'm really hoping that the town of Renfrew will step up and put security cameras to protect the business owners that are trying to beautify the downtown area and bring in tourism.
Security cameras are a passive way to protect your property. In my mind, the only people who have to really have any kind of care about that sort of thing are people who, as I said, are intent on doing something that's not appropriate. I just want to finish with another little clip from Suzanne in a restaurant as part of the same interview. When I was talking to her about the graffiti that had been placed outside her business, she mentioned to me that it wasn't the first time, that it had happened before, perhaps a week or two before, and that she had to go to some expense to fix that up.
So the first time I was vandalized was probably about a month into construction, before my signs were up, and the building was tagged. I didn't seem like it was too upset about it at the beginning, because a lot of the places were tagged, and I assured the building owner. I told him about it. We corrected the issue, but I didn't freak out about it, basically. But when I saw it the second time, right beside the sign that I paid quite a few $1,000s for, then I started to get a panic feeling inside that what I'm trying to create, the beauty of what I'm trying to create, is almost for nothing if it's just going to end up being in a situation where it's spray painted all over. So I'm hoping that's not going to be the case, but at the moment that is what I'm feeling inside, yes.
What really bothered me was the lack of certainty within Suzanne that these acts weren't in some way somewhat personal in nature. And that unfortunately would have to do, of course, with her Indigenous heritage. And I would be ashamed to have something like that happen in my community. And I would absolutely be horrified to think that there would be anyone around who would take the time to do that level of harm on not only a physical level but an emotional level as well to another human being. That troubles me a lot. Now, it's not like she's saying that that's what she believes, but in all fairness, if I were her, it would be something that would cross my mind as well. And I mean, this is truly like we're talking about a beautiful person here. We're talking about a beautiful restaurant. We're talking about this place wasn't thrown together. There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of elegance. They've just done a really, really terrific job. And I would hate to think that somebody who has a distorted view of various heritages that may hopefully coexist within a community, that there are people out there who would be against that and would be willing to express their displeasure by vandalizing the property of an Indigenous owner. That would be pretty tough. That would not look good on all of us at all as citizens of Renfrew. So there we are. We're talking about tagging and graffiti here in Renfrew, Ontario. For our Newsmag Renfrew, I'm Steve Jones.